My name is Gwen. I'm married almost 10 years. And I have three boys who are 8, 6, and just turned 3. So never bored.
So you're a missionary to Hungary?
Yes.
Nice. How has God started in your life? Like from early childhood, how has God got you to that place now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So actually, I grew up, one of my earliest memories. So I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and my brother, one of my brothers, is 14 years older than me. And so I was born in the early 90s, and when I was about 3, so it would have been 1995, my big brother decided to go over to Hungary, which at that point had only been like 5 years post communism regime. And so, and of course, during that whole time of communism in that region, the church was really persecuted. So he heard about this opportunity to go spend the summer with a pastor, and they ran a youth camp. And my brother just went and basically like helped take care of the camp site for the summer. And so, kind of from a really early age, my family was involved in missions over in Eastern Europe, and kind of like that post communist region. My brother got married and joined the military. And so, my parents wound up just saying, okay, well, there's still a need. Our son can't do this anymore, so we're going to go. And so I would just travel with them every summer, and we'd go spend the summer doing this. And then when I was in high school, my parents decided to move to Romania. So there's part of Romania that you might have heard of called Transylvania. And that region used to be part of Hungary. And so there's still a very large Hungarian population there. There's Hungarian schools, churches, all of that. And so my parents were moving there to teach English and with that be able to do ministry. And so I went to a Hungarian high school. Didn't have a super strong relationship with Christ at that time. So I just had a great time being a teenager in Europe. And then, long story short, kind of fast forward to my my freshman year of college. I graduated early, so I was 17, and I grew up in a church denomination that was very, very much, maybe more like about tradition and theology, but less about your relationship with Christ. And we just didn't really even talk about the Holy Spirit. And so kind of all through my freshman year, the Lord was revealing himself to me in different ways. And I was baptized as a baby, but I got rebaptized when I was 17. And I just really felt a strong burden to go back to that region where I'd served with my family and see what God had for me there. And so I spent the summer after my freshman year in Hungary and Slovakia. And during my time in Hungary, it was like towards the end of the summer, I'd been helping with summer camps. And there was a young man that said to me, he said, camp is so great. I look forward to it every year. And we spend time being, learning about God, and we get to be close to God. And I always feel like stronger in my faith after camp. But then I go home and I have to wait another year for this again. And I said, well, like, do you go to church? Do you, like, is there a youth group in your church or anything like that? And he didn't even know what a youth group was. And so I kind of had to explain it to him. And he's like, well, I go to church sometimes with my grandparents, but it's just like, it's not, there's nothing, I'm like the only one my age there, and it's very traditional, and it's just, he's like, I don't feel like I really fit in there. And so, yeah, I guess the Lord really just burdened my heart at that point. And I didn't know where that would lead. But fast forward, like, I honestly kind of went through college, spent another summer partially in Romania, partially in Hungary. Actually had a really tough time that summer, where I got into a bad situation because I was a single girl by myself. And sometimes that can not always be the safest. And so wound up having a pretty terrible experience that I spent time with God, and I was like, God, I'm willing to go anywhere, but I am not doing this alone. Like, I'm not going to be the single girl out there anymore. I can't. Like, I just felt like it wasn't for me. And so, yeah, at that point, I don't know, somewhere along the line, my husband, Marcus, like, we had been friends, and we'd always talked about, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do missions? We got married, and God just kind of like fast forwarded that and put that right in front of us. Yeah, we read a book called Radical by David Platt, and it just completely, we were like, oh, maybe we should do missions someday thing isn't really what God's saying. Like, God's telling us we need to start focusing on this now. And so we just started, we started supporting a missionary who was just happened to be moving to Hungary. And then we started leading a Bible study. And then we were going to another Bible study just to get as much, as we could, and grow. And this girl that we were supporting was with this organization called Josiah Venture that we're with now. And we kept receiving stuff from them. And they have like an online prayer room. So we would go in and pray on the online prayer room, and you'd see these requests. And we realized through all of this that we're like, wow, they're really doing something really cool. Because the whole mission and vision of JV is to build up the local church by focusing on that next generation, by building youth ministries, by mentoring youth leaders, by raising them up, so that there is something for those teenagers, so that they're not just going, camp's great, and then they're not being discipled. Our whole focus is like discipling them after camp, so that then they can be that leader, at the next, who knows, even at the next camp. And so, yeah, so long story short, we just went through a time of exploration. We were still supporting this girl. We were like, hey, if we were a missionary, we'd want someone to visit us. So let's go visit her. So we found out more about the organization, and went on 2 short-term trips over there, and just really felt the Lord leading us, and showing us, like, that second short-term trip we went on it felt like it was so much more impactful, because the kids were like, you came back, you care, it was that extra piece. And so we realized that if we really want to make a difference, we need to be here more than just 1 week out of the year. And so that's how we started. That's how God called us to go full time, to be able to learn the language and build relationships. And and all throughout this, in our own local church and in the States, we were helping to lead youth ministry, and helping to lead Bible study, discipling young people, and also going to Bible school. So all this time the Lord was, just equipping us through different things. It wasn't like we just did one thing and we were equipped. It was all these different little things. It was like, okay, this is the next step. And then even just, we both were working just normal jobs, and God kept giving opportunities for us to share our testimony with our coworkers. So we're like, okay, let's step into this, and so, yeah. So
How has God intervened in your life and shown you new things? Like, what are those new things that he's shown you?
yeah, one thing I think of that's recent, just like within the past 6 months, that I've been learning is to be okay without having all of the answers. To be okay with not fully understanding why God does something, but trusting that he has a purpose in it and that it's all going to make sense in heaven. And so, just to give an example, we, the first year that we were in Hungary, we lived in one house for 1 month, and then we found another house that was less expensive and bigger, so we moved there. And it was great, except that 6 months into our lease, our landlord decided to raise the rent by way more than we could afford. And then, this whole time we'd been praying for friends for our kids. That was actually like one of our biggest prayer requests for like at least a year. And so we got to move in to this other house where the community, it felt like the Lord had a reason for us to be there. There were neighbors with kids or grandkids who were friends with our kids, even though our kids only speak a little bit of Hungarian and their kids spoke no English. They were friends. And our neighbor was, we got to talk to her about God and share our testimony with her. Because, one of the first things she said to us was, my husband died of cancer. I haven't been to church in 20 years since he died, and I have melanoma. And so we that whole year we were living in that house, spent the whole time just like walking that out with her, getting to pray with her as often as we could, and just, speaking the truth of Christ to her as often as we could. We had another neighbor come up and just say, yeah, I was baptized in the Catholic Church as a baby, but I don't actually believe any of that stuff. What do you believe? It just really felt open, like the Lord had a reason for us to be there. And then this past summer, our landlords said, we want to move back into this house. You have to be out by this date. And so we're the only house we were able to find to live in is 30 minutes away from that community by car. And so, but we're still in communication with that neighbor, the one neighbor. And so we do plan on going back and visiting, but it's still, it's different. But all of that was really hard, because it's like, wow, God, you have a purpose for us here. You have, our kids have friends. We see this prayer answered and this prayer answered, and we're getting to speak into people's lives, and it's just amazing. And then it's all taken away really fast. And so through that, the Lord has shown me two things. One is that I'm not going to understand everything, and I just need to be okay with it and trust him. And the second thing is that he showed me how he's used us in our neighbors' lives in every house that we've lived in. Maybe like not always as much as this last house, but he showed me that maybe he wants to use us in another community. And maybe that's part of the reason, is that he's not done with us. He's not just going to drop us into one community and that's it. And I know that he does that with some people, and that's amazing. But he wants us to be spread out, you know. He wants to use us in different areas around the city that we're living in, that we're serving in. And honestly, I think that's given me a lot of peace in not understanding everything, you know, but just trusting, like, okay, this is a small piece of it, and I just need to lean in and see who God has me to serve, or who does he want me to speak to or share his love with in this area.
What would you say to the person that wants to be a missionary?
God is going to know. God knows when they're going to be ready. And I think it's easy to feel the call and right out the gate be like, I'm ready, let's go, Jesus. And that passion is needed, and it's so important. But at the same time, it's not, I mean, God does it with some people, but it's not everyone's story. And so we're not going to know that timing, but he knows when we're when we're ready. And there might be some work that he wants to do in your life. And so just lean into the season that he has you in. Serve in the little things. And if you feel called to a certain place, go there. Check it out. And if that feeling grows stronger and God opens the door, step through it, you know? But yeah, it might not happen the way that you expect it to happen. No, I'm going to rephrase that and say it's not going to happen the way you expect it to happen. But when you get there, you're going to know that that's where God has sent you. Because that's the journey that's going to be.
Just to wrap up, could you pray for that person as well?
Yeah. Do you want me just to
Yeah, you
pray
just
right
like
now?
just like a declaration prayer to them.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah, Lord, just thank you for that call, that burden that you are instilling in the heart of this person that you're calling to go on mission for you. And Father, I just pray that you would show them exactly where you want them, that you would provide for them in every way, that they would lack nothing. But Lord, I pray more than anything that they would be able to say that you were in it, and that they're not there except by you and your power, because God, that's the only way that we are, that we're able to be used on mission for you is by your power, Lord. So I just pray that in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Gwen, thank you very much.
Yeah.